place to keep us in chains. By show of hands, who else is sick and tired of the same 1%? Trying to keep us small, trying to keep us from getting out. Minimizing the struggles they've caused, saying we're not working hard enough.
We really should stop this fighting. Otherwise, we'll miss the fireworks.
There won't be any fireworks.
And here we go. And welcome, everybody, to Suck It. I am the great and powerful King of Kings, Prince of all that is awesome. Derek, how the fuck are you today on this, was it January 13th of the, I don't know what kind of year it's going to be yet, 2021. How are you guys? It's Wednesday. We've made it halfway through the week. Hump Day is upon us. Things are happening in the Capitol again. Lovely, lovely, lovely time to be an American. Let me just tell you. That was my hand of joy. Let me just tell you. But again, we aren't going to talk about it like we haven't talked about it because it's such a downer. We're going to continue to talk about music and mental health and everything else in between, with the exception of politics. And that's no different today, because today I've got an amazing person with me who is part of a band by the name of Soraia. And you might be saying to yourself, who are they? Well, let me tell you who they are. They are freaking phenomenal. I've been listening to their music for the last week or so, catching up on listening and who they are, and they're pretty freaking badass. Based out of Philadelphia, they just released a new 7-inch called Tight-Lipped, and they also included a cover of Aerosmith's Angel on there, which, by the way, sounds freaking amazing. Steven Tyler should be jealous of how good this damn sounds. But they're based out of Philadelphia. They're a quartet band, and they're just absolutely freaking phenomenal. And we have the lead singer with us today. And so let's just get right to it, because we got a lot to talk about and a lot of fun stuff to discuss, and we'll go from there. But without any further ado, please welcome from the band Soraia, ZouZou.
Oh, it's nice to be here, Derek.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well.
That's
Thank
good.
you. Thanks for asking.
Good. So how's things been going for you guys?
Really good. I mean, we're excited to release new music. We always are, and it's just been an active time for us. We've been back to rehearsing now since May, and we just been learning covers and like doing live streams and writing. We've been writing a lot, both on our own and then collaborative. And we released a Christmas single, and now we released Tight-Lipped. We recorded this back in September of 2020, and we're really proud of this. We actually wrote it back in January, so with the intent of releasing our next single after our album came out. And it was just, we had a lot on our minds. So the result is written music, and so far it's really, really great to hear, like, the compliments, and because you're always scared when you release new music, but I feel really proud of this particular song. Like, the lyrics that I wrote and the melody and the band's performance on it was just, we just keep upping the game. You know what I mean? We keep trying to grow. So we've been busy.
That was my bad.
Okay.
And that's
I hear you.
I had something messed up on my screen. I had to change something real quick, and I didn't want you to hear it. And that's the name of the game. You've got to, keep growing. You've got to keep changing it up. You've got to stay relevant, because when the moment you leave the spotlight, regardless of how small or big it is, people put you to the back burner. And I feel that this year, in regards to music, a lot of people are forgetting some of their bigger artists, some of their bigger fans. I mean, or bigger fandoms. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
Because, there's a lot of bands that have said, you know what? We're just going to sit back and relax. We're going to write an album, but we're not going to give it to you until we can tour. But on the other side of things, I mean, there's been a few. Taylor Swift put some out. Miley Cyrus put some stuff out.
Yep.
I know on the rock side we had who was it? There's been a bunch, but there hasn't been nearly as much as there used to be
Right.
prior to 2020.
Agreed.
But this year has really, or excuse me, last year was really the year of the indie band. And I love the shit out of that because, and I've said this before on previous episodes when I've talked to other bands, it gives me so much joy to have talked to a band prior to a release of an album or a 7-inch or a single or EP or whatever,
Right.
and then going on to Apple or going on to Spotify or Amazon Music a couple days after it's released or the day it's released and then seeing it in the featured.
Yeah.
Because that means that the process is working. Things are going the way they should be. You know, you're not seeing something that was, you know, released 6, 7, 8 months, 10 months ago, a year ago in the featured. No, you're seeing bands that are putting out new albums that are being featured. Even though they're indie bands and they're relatively unknown except for outside of their, you know, their regional area. But now they're blowing up on a national scene, and it's fucking amazing. I absolutely love it. It's something that I've never seen before in the music business like this.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this time because I feel like, you know, despite you know, the inevitable, like the sadness and the lack, like we haven't been able to tour. That's the big thing. And the live streams are great, but they're not live shows.
Yeah.
And we're very much a live band. And I personally thrive on being in the live setting. So it's been difficult, but we've partnered with some venues and like, you know, when you're kind of connected to something bigger, like it's just good for everybody. Like even the duet on the backside of this single was because in the summer me and Jessie were like, let's work together. Let's just do a duet for like, you know, let's video it and throw it out on social media. You're like, it's like you're trying things that you wouldn't try normally at all.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because it's a whole different time. So it's what I find is I'm being more creative. I've been forced to be more creative. My band's been forced to be more creative. And we're taking more risks. And I think when you say the indie bands are blowing up, I think these are bands that do it for the love of doing it. And they haven't got caught up in and not saying bigger bands aren't doing it for that reason, but they haven't got caught up in that. We got to do this. And then we do this. And then we do this. And then we do this. We're just like, we wrote something. We want to put it out in the world. And it came out. And that doesn't mean it's not going to die. You know, it's going to be here for the rest of eternity. So whether you discover it now or you discover it 2 years from now when we're touring, you're going to hear it. But, you know, I feel like having that presence and saying what's on your mind now is really important. And indie bands are doing that. I'm proud of like what we've accomplished in this time and how we've had to handle things differently, you know?
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, you know, because the playing field has been leveled. And now it's the time to show where you guys stand. So you like some of the albums that I've heard this past year, just countless, you know, indie bands that have just been like blown me away. And it's just like, you know, where have these guys been? Oh, they've been hiding in the shadows, unfortunately, because they've been overshadowed by these big bands. And they weren't hiding. They were trying their asses off, but they were just being, you know, again, forced into the shadows by the bigger labels, by the bigger bands that are now sitting there saying, hey, you know we haven't put out an album in 3 years and we're working on one right now. And it might take us another 3 years to get it out, but until we can tour, we don't even want to give it to you anyway. So it's going to be about 6 years total before we do anything for you guys again. So still be our number one fan, Avenged Sevenfold, but we're not going to talk about them.
That came out of left field. I didn't see it coming, but I appreciate it. I told you, I love your honesty, Derek.
Well, and I've mentioned this exact same subject on at least 75% of the time with talking to bands. Because the thing about it is, this is how I feel. And I'm sure a lot of other bands feel this, a lot of other fans feel the same way. Not specifically about Avenged, but other bands as well. You know, where were you guys when we needed you the most? You weren't there. So now I got to look at a freaking, you know, my Rev tattoo, you know, from the drummer who died on my arm, because they're my favorite band of all time. They always will be. But right now I'm holding a grudge against them. But how many other people in this world, or at least in the United States, are holding grudges against A7X or Metallica or, some of the other bands that they just absolutely love because they weren't there for them this year. And I think that really sucks because now it sucks, but at the same time, it's a freaking blessing because now it's time for you guys to shine and show who you guys are and that, hey, we're here. We're here for you now because we have something good for you. Listen to us. And that's exactly what's been happening.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm not glad. I'm not happy that people feel let down. One of the very first things that occurred to me, we were in California touring based on our Dig Your Roots album that came out March 13th of 2020. So we were already on tour promoting the album when COVID basically, brought us back home and quarantined us. So one of the things that immediately occurred to me is to stay connected. Like, I don't know why, but in my head, I kept saying, you got to stay connected. You got to put out there. People need to stay connected because this is the time when they're going to isolate and they're going to let, when you talk about mental health, like people that have issues with that, people that don't even have issues with that yet, we're going to, exactly. Like you're going to isolate, and isolate is, it was always put to me this way. It's like a lamp doesn't have any power if it's not plugged in. But once it's plugged in, it's so we need to stay connected. And for a lot of people, including pretty much everybody, music is one of the main ways of staying connected.
Yeah.
And that occurred to me early on. That wasn't my thought. It came from somewhere else. And I remember we did our hometown release show in Philly. Our show had been canceled when we flew home. So we decided to do a live stream. We had no idea of the live stream platform. It was kind of not good, but it was okay. We still showed up, and what people said, they were like, we didn't care about all the sound issues. We were just glad that you did it. We needed to see you. So we started doing these weekly like Facebook lives, and we do like a couple songs, acoustic covers, like just anything to keep creative for ourselves and keep active for ourselves. Cause that keeps my head above water and to stay connected. And so many people would write me afterwards and said, we just need to see you guys because you make us laugh. Please just keep doing these things. And how can I not? These are people that have bought our records, that have told us, given us inspiration when we haven't felt very good about ourselves or had a bad show or whatever, and just said how much we mean to them. I was like, they love this. They're giving us feedback. I've always listened to what our community has brought back to us. And that was one of the main things they said is we need to see you guys together. We need to hear about you guys. We need you to keep releasing things. So we just kept doing it because even when we didn't want to, we knew they wanted us to. So it's like you're kind of connected to something bigger there than just yourself and and it's not big business yet. So we're not like restricted by anybody saying you can't, or we're not going to put that out.
Yeah.
Or that's too big of a business risk. Unfortunately, when music gets to a mass level like that, it becomes a little less artistically what people really want to do, I think. So, I think staying connected, and I've watched the radio stations around here try to find a way to stay connected too. And I think that's the glory and the good part of everything that's happened is people are trying. And I think just like after, the pandemic in 1918 is like, you still have to look at what the Roaring Twenties did after that. So I think there's going to be lots of joy in music and a lot more people going like, I'm going to that show. I'm not missing it this time kind of thing. Like, I'm not going to sit home tonight because I just am tired. I'm going to see them. That's my favorite band. And I think people are going to find more new favorite bands. And it doesn't mean the other ones are going to be obsolete. You're just bringing more people to the forefront. And I think that's always a good thing for music, always a good thing for fans and for musicians. So overall, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said. Especially with the live streaming stuff. Over the summer, I had a bright idea, even though I've never done anything like it before. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna hold a couple of streaming concerts on my show, and kind of bring in a live band, kind of Tonight Show style. And I was like, let's do this. And I reached out to a bunch of bands that had previously been on my show, a bunch of local bands that just said, hey, do you have the capabilities of doing this? And I was able to put together a pretty, I think it was 20 some shows over like 6 weeks. Wow. I was able to put it together. And at first I had horrible audio. I mean, they didn't have the best setup, and I was trying to stream it, and it was just the way it was going out wasn't great. But I eventually figured it out, and even like people were in the chats because I was doing it live, like I said, and they were in the chats going, hey, adjust this. Okay, cool. And I would text them real quick, and they had somebody else that would adjust it. It worked out and it ended up being great. And then back on December 11th, I did a Toys for Tots telethon live on YouTube. And I ended up having 13 different bands and a bunch of comedians come on. And that one went off flawlessly. The audio was fantastic. It really, really worked out. And the reception for it was just unfreaking real. And
Yeah.
it really, showed me what people were missing. Because when I had that idea back in June, I was like, I'm missing music. 2019, 10 different concerts. 2020, I didn't see anything but one. And a lot like a lot of other people. And I took that for granted. And I missed that feeling. I missed going to a metal show with all my fellow metal heads, and that camaraderie that we have.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're a 70-year-old guy who used to, go to Zeppelin shows, and then, just coming around to what we're listening to today, or that 15-year-old there with their dad. There is a camaraderie there that is just unlike anything else, and I miss that. And I got some semblance of that, a very small semblance of that when I was doing all these different virtual shows, but it's still nothing like anything else. I mean, that whole live thing is definitely, it's missed 100%. Doesn't matter if it's live comedy, live Broadway, live, plays, whatever you're a fan, orchestra, whatever you're a fan of, that whole live, feeling is unlike anything else.
Yes, it is.
And it's missed, I miss it. And I can feel super empathy for, people like you, because I used to, be a musician, and I used to tour, and I used to do stuff like that. And I know what that feeling is on stage. I'm also now a stand-up comic, and I can't go out and do that kind of stuff. So that feeling I lost too. So it's like, I feel, luckily I do have this show that I get to do, and, 5 days a week, whatever. And it, makes me, get, again, some semblance of that, but it's nothing like that live roar or that live laughter or anything else in the world.
No, I agree. And I'm going to address a couple things. One of the first things is I think that's really important that the value of the live show is when it comes back, that it's, it'll be, I think people will realize it. I don't know if only for 6 months or a year, and then they'll go back to but I think one of the things is I know what I'm grateful for, and I know what I miss. And I always said, I wonder what I'm going to be like if I can't get up on that stage and lose my mind. And here I am. So I survived it, but it does affect your mind, and it affects the way you look at things. And I've been personally just been trying to stay as creative as possible, because my option is, once I stop, I tend to stop, and go into a dark place. So to me, music is a lifeline as well. Performing it or singing it, I think on both ends, it's as vital and as necessary as it is. And it's, somebody had posted on our site, our fan site this morning, what's the song that you listen to make you happy? And I'm like, well, that's a nice post for today. And I put down it was an 80s song called Sarah's When I See You Smile by Bad English. I just heard it yesterday.
God, yes.
Do it nonstop for 2 days now. And I'm like, I guess right now that's the song, but tomorrow it's going to be something else. But it's it makes me happy, and it makes me feel good. And I was like, man, I smile when they sing that line. So I'm like, I love music. I got into music because I love music and what music has given me and saved my life a number of times. But I think, oh shoot, now I lost track of what I wanted to tell you based on what you said. Oh, the community, check it. So I went to one live streaming show of a major act, and it was Foo Fighters. I'm a big fan of Foo Fighters, been a big fan for years. And I was part of me was talking myself out of it before I went. It's oh, I don't want to see them. I know they don't even really want to do it probably, but they were doing it at this club in LA, like a club we've played, just a regular club. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go, because you're sitting here and you're in this place where you're just lazy or whatever. Anyway, I went. And my favorite part of it, it was great to see the band. It was great to see how awkward they were with the live, they were just awkward. And he's like, I don't know what to do, and the vulnerability of the artists that I don't get to see on a stage with that was one of the things I enjoyed. But the thing I enjoyed the most was the community chat the entire time. like us singing with him. Like
Mhm.
we had to type in what we were singing, but it still felt the same. And everybody at the end was just like, man, I can't wait to hug you and see you in person. And I never met these people. And I felt the same way. Like I felt that love. Like I felt that instant like connection to the community of fans that every band has, no matter how small or large. The community is what makes the band. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? The similarities in the people. And, we don't look at our differences. We look at like what brings, this is my favorite band, or I love this band because, you know what I mean? Like I can tell you stories of Foo Fighters and why I love them. But if you're in the community and we're talking about it, and then we make fun of like one of the band members, like in a nice way, like, oh, look at Taylor, he's
Yeah.
always mugging, whatever. So
Always
like,
make fun of Taylor.
I know. It's just fun. And it's just great. Like, and I felt so renewed. And I still thought, but after a show, being in person with those people, and when you really make that eye to eye, face to face connection and you get to talk, I think we're all missing that. So, but at least we get to have that, and I'll take it. Like, because some people, even under that, were kind of being like, I won't see a concert till I can see it. I was like, all right, but you're missing out on the community still,
Yeah.
because they're still there and they're still trying to connect. And maybe they need you more than you need them. So maybe just show up for them, or maybe your band needs you. Why don't
Yeah.
you show up for the band? Like I still, it hurts when I see, you know, some people not coming because they're so not in a good place. Like fans like that we've known for years that are just like, I don't want to come till I can see you. I'm like, you're missing out. You're missing out.
You really
You're
are.
missing connection. Whatever connection we can get, we should take it right now. Because that's what we can get. You can be angry, but you still got to connect.
Yeah.
So that's my theory anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've bought a bunch of the tickets to see the different ones last year. I saw Trivium did one earlier in the summer. Corey Taylor did one toward the end of the summer. I did see the Foo Fighters one, and then in September, I can't remember which one it was. One of my favorite bands out of Massachusetts, Ice Nine Kills, did one, but theirs was a little bit different. Theirs was a pre-recorded one from like the year before, and then they just made it really interactive and kind of like it was really interesting. So I did see a few of them, and they were really really cool. And and it's again, it's about that being in that community, being in that chat room, seeing what's going on, talking to other band members, talking to these other fans and whatever else. Are just really really cool. I mean, and then on top of that, there's also been ones that were free, that were for donations, like the Save Our Stages one that they did in California. Miley Cyrus freaking blew it up.
Yeah.
Oh my! I am not a Miley Cyrus fan, but I was like, you know what? I want to see what she's all about. I have a free thing I want to watch. I did end up donating, but I'm like, the end of it there when she did that cover of Zombie brought a tear to my eye. I was like, I am a Miley Cyrus fan. And
Dark side.
huh?
That's why.
Yeah.
She's come over to the dark side.
She is coming over to the dark side because she this last album, like I listened to it. What is it called? The Pink Hearts or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Reminds me so much of Joan Jett and early 80s, that early 80s style of rock. And to now find out that she's doing a Metallica covers album is unreal. I'm like, okay, Miley is a rocker. I'm absolutely in love with this chick. Bring it
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But again, it's there's that feeling of camaraderie again, and knowing that the band is going out of their way, doing something that might not feel the same, that is a little bit different, that you're there for, really kind of shows, hey, you are a true fan, and
Yeah,
it
that's
doesn't
what
go unnoticed.
Yeah, I think a true fan is a true fan no matter what the context. And I don't have whole judgment on people that feel the way, like I'm not going till I go. But I think, like I said, I think they're missing out, and I think they're forgetting like that it's an even exchange. Like if you're not there, I'm not there. You know what I mean? We're not going to be there if you're not there. Miley's not going to be there if you're not there. You know what I mean? So all these people like aren't. We're interdependent more than we think we are. We think we're a fan of that band, but the band needs to see, like I read all our chats, and we're doing another one for Save Our Stages this Friday at Bowery Electric, and for a tight-lipped release. And I always log on to the community chat and I check it afterwards. And we usually have people like offer up songs, like try and pick songs to add to the set during it when we do it with another venue. Because I feel like that way it's still interactive and it still keeps people engaged. Because when you're at home, it's a little different. You're not actively involved as much.
Yeah.
You're kind of watching, like you're watching TV, you're watching a movie. So it's like I try to find a way to keep people engaged and not just be a TV show. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Keep them in that live spirit. And I think that's a challenge for all artists who because none of us really know what to do. And like you were saying, when you had, you try, fail, try, fail, try, succeed by December when you had your bands on, it's the same for every band. Like even with professional sound people, there's still like dropouts and stuff like that going on all the time. Like it's technology. It's just as uncertain as when you're in a live show and you forget words. Like it's not it's just different mess ups, different hiccups,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let me take this, a little bit of a different direction. One of my things I've noticed over the last 10, 13, 14, maybe 15 years is the shift of the rock industry to where it went through a lull for a while. Not a lot of, there wasn't like a huge surge of, new bands, wasn't getting a lot of coverage. Even the festivals weren't even as big as they were, 15 years ago, but now they've been kind of gradually growing to be as big as they are now. And one of the things that I think has been a leader in that, and some people agree with me, some people disagree with me, is the diversity of the rock industry has kind of grown. But one of the things as far as diversity goes that has grown outside of anything that we've seen since the 80s is female-fronted bands. Whether it's, Lizzie Hale, whether it's Maria Brink of In This Moment, whether it's, Courtney LaPlante of the new band Spirit Box, or whatever the case might be, women in rock have exploded over the last 10, 15 years. Some of my favorite bands now are woman-fronted bands. And I think that in itself really kind of took the charge in the change of it all. So how are you, now being an industry that's still, still run by men, don't get me wrong. I mean, but I see that slowly changing. But now I feel, whether it's run by men or not, women are taking over, and I feel that every time, I hear, Butcher Babies or anybody else, and it's like, fuck, how do you feel about being a part of that, for lack of a better term, revolution of the rock industry?
I feel good about it. I mean, that's what the song Tight Lipped is all about. The story of feeling like, I don't know how to say this without sounding. I think there's been a lot of experiences where I've been in situations where male artists or male producers have tried to help us, but there's a different dynamic as a female. And I think I played the role of, thank you, I really appreciate you doing that for me. And I was like, in a sense, I'm denigrating my own power by doing that. Listen, like, and I think it was much more a part of how I was brought up and how I was taught to be, and not necessarily just by my parents, but by the social settings I was always in, by the schools I was in. And I don't think they did that maliciously. I think it's just how I grew up. And I don't kind of have a judgment on it. So there became a point where I said, this is my life. This is my career. This is my journey. Like, I have to take control. I don't have to ask permission from people to be who I am. And that took some time for me to feel that way, because I was involved with a lot of bigger artists who were trying to pave a way and really trying to help me. And I took this backseat to my own career, my own life, and my own art. More importantly, the type of music I was putting out. And there came a point where I thought, like, I want to have this music. There was something I read, it was Patti Smith, and it was just like a quote, like a Facebook meme quote. I was like, it's nothing prophetic or anything, but it changed my thought pattern immediately. And it was where I was already heading anyway. And it said, keep your name clean. and it was this idea she had of like, you got to do what you want. Everything else will come later. Because I was always in this fear-based thought, like if I don't do it this way, or these people are successful and they're telling me I didn't do it this way. And when I finally said my piece and I finally did it my way, we started having more success. So there's a lesson in there for every female front, like, and I think it's nothing that like, I don't think that anyone tried to squelch me or like push me down. I feel like if anything, I can work on my self-censorship and on myself. Like, why did I do that? Why did I sit in the background of my own life for so long? And then now I've just taken this power back, and I wanted to, I really wanted to put that into a song of like, and it was funny because I was reading for some weird reason, and I'd never read this, but I was interested in the story of Ophelia in Shakespeare. And I was like, she drowns at the end? What the fuck is that? She drowns at the end? Like, what kind of, and then the other ones are their heroes? Like, come on. And I was like, no, revive her and bring her back. So if you listen to the song, this Ophelia character, every chorus goes from like this sweet Ophelia to like this lioness that's just come to like, you know what I mean? And I'm so proud of that because I finally put into words what I felt for so long, and now I'm not. So how do I feel to be at that, in part of that scene? I feel proud. I feel honored. I don't feel like, oh, because I'm a woman, I'm getting special attention, or I have to compete differently with a male. I'm just trying to be a better artist, period. Yeah. And I'm trying to be more honest and say what I really think in a way that I feel comfortable saying it. I don't have to be like, God, this is what I think, but I do want to stand for something. And to me, like that matters. But I also want to be an attractive stand. Like, I don't want to be a put off. I see enough in that. But I think the artists that really have changed my life and my thinking that didn't necessarily agree with me, or I agreed with what they thought, but the way they said things in their music spoke to me. And that's the kind of artist I want to be. So I feel honored to be part of any of those people that you mentioned. I think all of them. Lizzie Hale, I know she's from my area. I played one of my first shows ever when she just got signed. Yeah. And I remember going to her and being like, wow, you're a star. Like, you're a star, not like you're a star. You're a light. You're here, and you're inspiring to me. And here she blew up. Like, this was in like 06, something like, so it's like 14 years ago. And it took her time to get to where she is. It didn't happen. Like, I remember they were living for a year in LA just trying to write, or maybe 2 years. But anyway, it wasn't like overnight. You know what I mean? Yeah. It took time, baby steps. But like, to be even, she fought for what she got. And I look at some of the women that are up there and their longevity. Look at Joan Jett. We've opened for her a number of times. I told her, the first thing I said to her when I met her, I was like, you saved my life. Like, you saved my life. Like, that voice, knowing I could do it too, saved my life, because I knew I had to sing. Like, and you taught me that I could do it and still I could do it for a living. I could do it. So, I mean, I'm proud to inspire anyone, and like, that's exciting to me. I appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Because, I listened to the song and I kind of had an idea that's what it was talking about. And that's why I went that direction. But again, this is something I've brought up many times, especially every time I talk to somebody that is a female fronted band, because it's powerful. I took my daughter, she's 19 now, but back in 2014 or 2015, I can't remember which year it was, but I took her to one of her very first concerts was a Hailstorm concert. And we were at the House of Blues in Orlando. And when Lizzie walked up on stage, like, I thought my daughter was going to die. I mean, just the tears, and she was screaming so loud. And, Here's to Us came on, and she was just singing at the top of her lungs, and I saw it in her eyes at that point, and I was like, damn. And then, that was the first time I ever saw Hailstorm live. I've seen a bunch since then, but and then the year before that, I had saw In This Moment live, and Maria Brink does the exact same thing. She just has this aura about her, and to see all the females, like, so the year that I saw them, it was at this was before I moved to Virginia. It was at a show in Orlando called Earth Day Birthday. It's a huge festival down there, but they have 2 stages. And In This Moment was headlining the second stage. And they were coming on 5 or 10 minutes before Volbeat was ending, but people had left the main stage where Volbeat was performing to go watch in this moment. And it was like something it was the start of something I saw happening, but at the same time I didn't see how big it had gotten. And then I saw what my daughter saw, and then over the last few years, just this amazing rise of, again, it's not even about female or anything else. It's about just these strong people showing, hey, we belong here too. And
Yeah.
I think that is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, we had those trailblazers before us, and we have to keep it going and further it along. I think that's the responsibility of every generation, right? Is like if I didn't have that example, I didn't know I could do it. And I've had this in me since I remember in second grade. I have a picture of me in second grade singing with my friend Corinne on stage on my desk in case I ever forget. You know what I mean? That this is something I've wanted to do my whole life, and I'm humbled that I get to do it, and I'm humbled that I can write songs, and the people that spend time teaching me that, and but I think, yeah, it's about being empowered as an individual, and I think the message speaks to males as well as females, that like you can be. I have a very like feeling of underdog, like you whether it's put on you or you have it naturally or whatever, is like you can transcend anything you're going through. And that's the
Yeah.
message of all those people that you mentioned that I've heard in their songs, is like, they're singing maybe like something like general, but there's always that fire underneath that comes out, that you sense that they've been through something or they've had to fight a little more to get what they want. And to me, that's inspiring. That makes me want to like, like lose my mind. Like, so when you said your daughter was crying, I understand that. A good friend of mine called me. Tight Lipped released on Friday, and she called me and left me. I'll always save this audio message. She was crying. She's like, I'm crying over a rock song. And I'm like, what if you're going to cry over something that's so worth crying over a rock song? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that means you're affected by it. Like,
Yeah.
that's what music does. Like, that's nothing more complimentary, I think, to any artist. And I think I'm speaking for everyone when you hear that, that song changed my life, or that saved my life, or that I could relate to that. That happened to me. That's my story. Like, that's how we communicate. Like, right? That's why we put our real feelings into songs. So, yeah, I think I'm very proud of the diversity I'm seeing. I'm very proud of the way people are embracing it too, because it needs when people embrace it, it can thrive and it can grow. So I'm really proud of it, and I'm glad you brought that up. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Because again, it's important. It's important. Especially the diversity of it in general. Not just women, but black fronted bands, Hispanic fronted bands. It's that is one of the things I do miss most. And I go back to the camaraderie thing. When you go to a festival, whether it was the Earth Day Birthday one in Orlando, or whether it's Rock on the Range, which is now Sonic Temple, or whatever the case might be, Rocklahoma or Carolina Rebellion, whatever. When you go, for anyone that's never been to a rock festival, it is not all white dudes in leather pants, or you know or punks with mohawks all the time. No, it is every walk of life, every age, every color, every gender, everything there for one purpose: music. And I think that is something that no other genre I've ever seen can pull off.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
funny you say that.
beautiful.
I was thinking about like a lot of the rock shows I go to, and it's so many different ages. Like there's like from little tiny kids. Like when we opened for Joan Jett in where was it? It was in somewhere in Jersey. Anyway, these little girls that are like just playing guitar for the first time are coming, and they're just looking at me like all starry-eyed. And it's adorable. And then there's like women and men well into their 60s or 70s that are coming and saying the same thing. It's like, to me, like that's, because I think we are always somehow conditioned to go, we stay with this group of people.
Yeah.
We're safer with this group of people, right? But like really, it's the power is in the bringing all those types of people together. And then when you also said, to go back to what you said about the different cultures coming forth as lead singers, they have a different story to tell, but their story affects people that need to hear that story. So it should be diverse. Like not everybody's going to like the music Soraia makes, but maybe they'll like the music that Hailstorm makes, or maybe they'll like both, And I think one of the things I learned early on too about rock and roll in Europe versus in the United States is, and I remember hearing this, that people in Europe tended to buy the music first, learn the album, then go to the concert. Whereas here, it's not always, but on a more mass populist consensus is it's the other way around. It's like you use the concerts to sell the album. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas like I go like, that's so much more of you're kind of on the level of the artist. Like you're the same. You want to participate, right? And I think when you're mentioning all these festivals and you're saying all these types of people, I'm like, that's the one thing. I've always had this goal of being on these huge festivals, and we haven't done it yet. We've opened for really big acts. We've never been on like a big festival, and I want to, because I'm like, can you imagine looking at the sea of people, and like some of them are singing the crap out of your music, and some of them are just like, we don't know who you are, but yay, we're here at a festival. Like, how great would that be? Like, that's an experience I want. So I just think it's important. All the things you said are really important, especially the diversity in music and the different messages that have to reach different people.
Yeah. Going back to something you said about the small little kids, I have two stories about that, and I think they're amazing. The first one was at that same show where I was talking about in this moment. The band Hollywood Undead out of California was there as well. And they have this ritual that they do in almost every show. I don't know if they're doing it, up until they stop touring, but where they bring a little kid up on stage to sing a song with them.
Yes.
And I had never seen it before. I was not the biggest, in this moment, Hollywood Undead fan, because I'm not the hugest fan of the rap rock, but at the same time, they sold me that day with their style of music, but I digress. They brought this kid up on stage, and this kid, who maybe was 9 or 10 years old, knew every lyric to every song. And he only sang one song with them, but you just knew he knew everything. And he was like starstruck, and he was just absolutely in love with it. And it was just the coolest thing I ever saw. But then recently, within the last couple of years, my youngest daughter, who's just now 10, has really kind of taken over, to love metal and rock. And one of her favorite bands now is one of my favorite bands, like I said earlier, that band, Ice Nine Kills. And they released that concert I told you about back in October, September. They released the album of it, so the whole, the live version. And her and I we took a road trip a little bit ago up to Pennsylvania, and about an hour and a half, 2 hour trip, and 19 songs, and she got through 16 of them word for word. And I was like, wow. She goes, just their music is good. I can't help it, Dad. I'm like, damn, and that's what I love that about this genre. I mean, it brings in everybody. And to see little kids, I mean, and even my daughter, when they would cuss, she would like stop herself. But that little kid up on stage with Hollywood Dead did not stop himself. But in the car with me, my daughter did. But it's really, it really is just a beautiful thing, because this, music in general speaks to people on levels that nothing else can. Once it gets into your head, and there's that earworm that just generates something, you can't get it out of your head.
Yeah.
And you had asked me before that we started recording, what the whole idea of the show is, what the backstory of this show was. And I'll kind of give you the 411 on it now because it kind of ties in what we're talking about. So, I started this show as a platform for me to, first off, have a way to continue to practice, being funny and so on and so forth. But at the same time, it was a way for me to communicate with other people who are like me, mental health people, and let them know, hey, it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to have a platform, and kind of talk about mental health and stuff like that. Because I suffer from bipolar disorder, PTSD, and severe anxiety, and I've had 2 suicide attempts. And one of the things that my very first suicide attempt was in November of 2018. And I was driving in my car, and I just had this overwhelming urge of just saying, fuck all. And around that same time, a band out of California by the name of Bad Flower released a song called Ghost. And it's a song about suicide. And I was listening to Sirius XM, Octane, and that song came on the radio. And I said, fuck. And I stopped what I was doing. I was going to barrel through a red light, and this was right near a cliff, too. I was going to barrel through the red light and just say, fuck all, I hope I hit the cliff. But as soon as I started to accelerate, that song came on. And I stopped. And I was just like, fuck. What Josh and Bad Flower did at that moment for me, I can never thank them for. And since then, I've noticed just this amazing amount of musicians talking about mental health. And, prior to 2018, there was other stuff too, but I've noticed it more since that time. Whether it was back in 2013, 2012, when Nothing More released their first album, and there was that song called Jenny on there about his sister, or back in 2019, in December, when Falling in Reverse released Popular Monster, or whatever the case might be. There's been so many songs that have, talked about mental health in ways that have never been talked about before. And that's what I kind of want to do with this show, is give people a platform to really have a place to come and say, hey, I know I'm not alone in this world. There's other people like me that deal with this same type of shit. But then at the same time, have a place to where we can laugh and talk and not necessarily always talk about mental health, because that would get kind of boring. So, but still have that underlying tone in every episode. Hey, I know this guy's not going to talk about it today, but I know what he's going through mentally. And, and that's why, I started the show. But as the time has evolved, I've taken it to another level, to where back in around October was when I said, hey, you know what? There's that gap right now. Again, like we were talking about earlier, where there's not a lot of bands that are making new music other than indie bands. And that's when I reached out to Mike at the time, and I said, hey, let's collaborate, and I want to talk to every single one of your bands under your banner. And he said, done. And I dedicated my time to focusing on indie bands. And I have since October, because you guys are doing something for me that is needed for millions. And the whole idea of music being a lifesaver speaks volumes to me, and I know a bunch of other people too. Whether it's a song about mental health and, suicide or whatever the case might be, or just a, freaking happy song, it takes my mind out of my own head and allows me to enjoy what's given to me, and really kind of make myself say, oh shit, okay, if I can listen to this song and not think about the demons going on inside my head right now, then obviously I can take that focus and put it onto other things as well. And that's what music has been my entire life. But I didn't realize it until that moment on November 2nd, 2018. I still remember the day. It was because, believe it or not, it was actually my wife's birthday. But my soon-to-be ex-wife, but at the time it was her birthday. And it was just, I realized at that moment what the power of music really had. It took me 37 years, but I knew music had that power. But the unlimited amount of power that it truly had, I realized in that moment. And that's when I decided to make the show.
Well, I thank you for sharing that with me. I think that's amazing. And I think anytime we can take our own pain and turn it into like something to help others is like a powerful thing. And I think that's what it sounds like you're doing. So I can tell you it's really hard, mental health wise, like to focus on your own. As soon as you start focusing on yourself and your own head, you can go down that dark path, right? And then music snapped you out of it. That's not a shock to me because the same has happened in my life several times, mostly as a teenager. So when I told you I met Joan Jett for the first time, and I've always based my kind of ethos, I guess is the best word for it, on what she's done, which is you just never stop. And there's a saying she has in Bad Reputation, the movie. It's a great documentary if you've never seen it.
I have.
Like there's this whole period of time where nobody thought they were relevant or mattered, and she's like, but I knew we were good, so I kept fighting. And I was like, that's the ethos. Like that's it. Even when my own brain is telling me I'm no good, I'm gonna keep going. But the fact that music reached you, it's like the great communicator. I feel like especially Bad Flower. It's funny you say that. A lot of people are fans of ours. They're always talking about Bad Flower, and I know he sings a lot about the stuff he's gone through. As I sing about the things I've gone through, some artists do that more than others. I think you're right about the idea of more mental health. Like even with, I think it's a really, for me, when I write, I used to just tell the story of what I'd been through, but now I try purposely to write about the self-censorship and the empowerment of the self to get past that. Like you can point to these people around you, but you brought them in. That's been my experience with my own mind and my own experiences that weren't great. And that's why, especially I feel like when you say tight-lipped and mental health, I go, the biggest thing that I took out of that is I learned to open my mouth, and it's up to me to shut it again. And if I shut it, this starts, right? This starts talking to me, and it's never good. It's always that, like, for me, it's like this other voice. So when I say I stay creative out of survival too. Like I think we all have to stay creative and stay open-minded to things. Open mind. Like once you close your mind, I've said this a few times. Like once you close your mind, you're dead. You might as well be dead because you're not learning anything new. You think you're protecting your thoughts and your beliefs, but you're just closing your mind. And when that happens, you're not open to anything. You're so defiant and defending it to the death. And it's like, there's been several things that certain people can say to me and they reach me. And those people I've learned to keep around me and trust with my innermost dark demon secrets, and, I'm thinking this way. I've learned to tell on myself kind of thing. But I think that's a powerful message I hear in a lot of music now. And when you say more mental health is being talked about, whether directly or subconsciously in the story, I think it's more true. I mean, personally, I find it more true. And listen, I love a good song that's just about nothing. Like,
Yeah, me too.
or something that when it makes me like, I love the melody of that, or I love the, but when I really want to connect, there's certain artists they might not even be artists I really like to listen to, like musically, but I need to listen to them. Like I'm a big Nick Cave fan, and I don't like listen to him to be like, woo, like although he has some songs that are kind of like that, he reaches me on a different level with what he sings about, but he's not somebody I'll listen to a lot. But when I do catch him, like I remember I was on a plane in March on the plane ride home from California. There was a whole concert of his on the screen on the it's like a chair screen. It's so weird to me anyway, movie thing. And I was like, man, I was like, I have to watch him when I get home. And like, I just watched a bunch of concerts of his and I was like changed. I was like, I don't even know what happened, but I love Nick Cave. Like, and it just, now I don't think I've listened to him since, to be honest, but I know he's coming out with something new. So I'll listen to that eventually too. But that's what music does for us. Like it does it for definitely saved my life a number of times. Anyway, I never said that. Yeah. The first time I met Joan and I said, you saved my life, I was like, well, that was dumb. But I also was like, it's true though. And she leaned back and you know what she said? I'll never forget it. This was 2 summers ago. She leaned back and she said, well, isn't that what you're doing now? Like, in her tough, like, kind of slinky way. And I'm like, am I? Like, is that what I'm doing? It's like, and I just said, yeah, because it's Joan Jett, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah. And I thought about it later. I'm like, fucking Joan Jett just said to me, isn't that what you're doing? Like, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Now, you know, but anyway, I babble. It's cool. Yeah.
I do the same thing. We're good. But no, I mean, yeah, that is why I love doing what I do, is because I get to talk to great artists and great people, and you know, yourself included, and just really kind of touch on things that nobody else really talks about in ways that I have no problem talking about. And it's amazing to me. And, you know, the amount of people that I've talked to in the last year since this whole thing has kind of started, and especially in the last 4 months that I've been doing exclusively indie bands, I cannot express enough gratitude for sticking around and being there for people who need you the most. And that is the honest to God truth.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that. And it's been a blessing in many ways.
Exactly. So you have a live stream this Friday. You just released the 7-inch last Friday as well. You guys got a bunch of stuff going on. Are you guys looking at making a new album anytime soon, or are you already in the process of doing so?
Yeah, we already are. We started writing in May again. And there was a period we just wrote, and then we stopped like around the fall. And then we've only written like 1 or 2 in the fall. So we're at like 7 or 8 that we're really, really happy with, that we think have, you know, say what we want them to say, and that we've pre-produced a ton now. And we have to finish. We usually do like our albums are usually 10 to 12 songs. So, you know, we have to like, we also want to kind of try to do a couple of side things like a covers EP soon, and then release something new in the fall, whether it be the full album or a single, and then followed by the full album. But a full album is soon, because we've already, like I said, written 8 that we're really content with, like really happy with. And I never want to wait too long, like to release something either, because I feel like that was the moment that we were in. So
Yeah.
I wanted to come out kind of close to where it was being experienced, especially from COVID time onward. It's like, you know, the tone of the songs, and just the growth of the songs from the very beginning to where we got to like last month is important, you know, as a piece of music. So I want to release that hopefully sometime this year, if not early next year, but definitely more music is coming this year for sure.
Fantastic. That's
Yeah.
That's awesome. So guys, if you want to check them out, all the links to their stuff is in the description of the video and the podcast. The link to Friday's event is up there as well. The link to their Instagram, their Facebook page, their website, the whole 9 yards, everything's there. Please check them out. They are just phenomenal. Your cover of Angel, like I said, Steven Tyler should be jealous of that because it sounds so fucking good.
Thank you.
So, you know, again, thank you so much for continuing to, you know, be creative and be an outlet for so many of us out there.
It's my pleasure. And we love you guys. Thank you.
No problem. We love you too. So thank you very much. So thank you very much, guys, for being here. That is all we have today for our Wednesday. Again, check out Soraia and everything that I have in the description and the link in the bio. But until tomorrow, stay happy, stay healthy, and as always, stay fucking heavy. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.